Hello and welcome back. My name is Alex and this is part 3 of my hard surface tutorials using Blender to make game ready assets. In this video we are going to be taking the suppressor we made in the last video and texture it in Substance Painter. First though, we need to unwrap the low poly suppressor in Blender, which I have right here. And to do that, first let's also give it a material. So just go over to the Materials tab in the Properties panel, press New, and name it Suppressor. Press Enter. And we don't need to change anything in Blender, we just need to give it one and give it a name. Now let's go to the top right, drag this over, press on the bottom left to change it to the UV image editor. Press the X down there for render result. Might just come up like this for you. If it does, that's good. Tab into edit mode, and then select all of the faces, press U, Smart UV Project, and change the island margin to 0.03. Press OK, and over here this actually looks pretty decent. Alright, so now that we have that done, we should also triangulate the faces just so there's no end guns anymore. So faces like this where they have a bunch of different vertices, just press Control and T. Let me pull up my screencast. There we go. This one too. And then on the back, I can actually get rid of this now. Control T, Control T. There we go. And now we're ready to take it into Substance Painter. So to do this, we need to file and export it as an FBX. And silencer low poly.fbx, export it. And then go ahead and open the high poly and export this one as well. Just like that. So now we are ready to take it into Substance Painter. So here we go. So this is what Substance Painter looks like when you first open it. To make a new file, you just go to File and New, and then select the low poly. So let me go to Desktop. Here we go. Low poly. So start at 2048, and we don't have any baked maps yet, so that's good. And then it will come up here. Okay, so now the first thing that we need to do is go over here to Texture Set Settings, and because this is the suppressor material, scroll down to Bake Mesh Maps, and this is where you bake all the maps like curvature and stuff that it's going to use to apply scratches to the edges, normal maps, and all that stuff. So the way I usually do it is I just start off with just the normal map, just so it's a little bit faster, because the normal map can get weird sometimes. The high definition meshes, this is where you put in your high poly mesh. So you just click this file, open thingy, and select your high poly silencer. And I'm just going to go ahead and bake it at 2048. I'll up it to 4096 later once I know that it bakes properly, but sometimes it can get weird, so just go ahead and do that and make sure that it works. There we go. Okay, so that actually looks like it did a pretty good job. Yeah, that's looking good. Check the front out. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so now that we know that that baked properly, we can go ahead and bake all the other maps. So I do world space normal. I don't do ID because that's just more for masking. Ambient occlusion, curvature, position, and thickness, and change it to 4096. So I'm going to bake these and I'll be back after they're done. Alright, so we're back. We have all of our mesh maps baked. You can see them over here. So now we can actually start texturing it. So I'm just going to drag that over, because I don't usually use the UV map for texturing. I usually do it in 3D view. So the way I start off is I delete the original layer and I will add a folder and name this, let's do light metal. And so that is going to be the center part right there, and then the dark metal is going to be the back part and the front part. So now I'm going to add a fill layer and put that inside of the light metal, and then on the light metal folder I'm going to right click and press add a black mask. And I'm just going to change this to a color so that we can see what we're masking. So now here, I'm going to press F6 to go into orthographic view, and down here on our shelf I'm going to go to alphas and search for a square, and over here that will give us a nice square brush to use. So now you can see that will mask it off. So now I'm just going to come over here and try to line it up. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Line it up with that edge right there. Just like that. And then basically, actually this might be easier to do on here. Just, let's see, change our settings from tangent wrap down here on our brush. So just scroll down on the brush settings and change it to UV and size space to texture. And now if we click, that should make it, yeah, a little bit easier. And then come down here. And if you hold Control and move and left click and move it up and down, that will rotate the brush. Or you can just come over here and change it. So I'm going to set it back to 0. Click there, hold Shift to make a line. There we go. So now we have that face masked off, edge to edge. I'm going to rotate the light so that it lights up this, and that is Shift and right click, so that we have light on the other side now. And then going to left click, Shift, and left click. There we go. Okay, same thing up here. I'm going to rotate the brush just a touch so that it lines up with that line right there. Then left click and then come back over here to rotate it to 0. Okay, and then could fill this in the 3D. Okay, there we go. Okay, and now this is the top part, or the bottom, I can't really tell based on UV. It's the bottom, okay. Just gonna set that back to 0. Fill in the rest of it. Okay, so let's take a look at it so far. Looking pretty good. Okay, so now the last part is, let's see. I think it's this, yeah, it's just this top face. So it is right there. Click there, hold Shift, and click down there. And then take it down to here. And there we go. So now, what happened there? I'm just going to press X to invert it, and left click up to, what's happened there? Whoops. Okay, I'm just going to do this in the UV. Okay, there we go. So now, there we go. So now we have a nice mask for that. And now what I'm going to do is just right click and duplicate that so that we have this and name it dark metal. Come on. There we go. And then I'm just going to right click that and press invert the mask. And then if we go in here and change this color to, let's say, like a green, now you can see that we have a nice mask that actually it's a little funky. Okay, so I paused right there. Basically what happened is it didn't cover the mask entirely, so it was like just off of being pure white, and so it was a little bit see-through in those parts. So now I'm just going to reduplicate that, name it dark metal, and now if we invert the mask and change the color, it should look a lot better. There we go. Yeah. Alright, cool. So now we can actually start working on the materials now that we have it all masked off. So I'm going to start with the light metal, and I'm going to take this fill layer and let's give it a base color of a gray, something like probably around there. And then we are going to right click and add a fill. And this is going to be used for, let's see, I wanted to do the roughness and, actually I think just the roughness. I guess also the height, yeah. And so for the height, we are going to use a blue noise, which is just going to give it a little bit. Right now it's super crazy, but we're going to tweak that later. It gives it a little bit of extra detail and just makes it look a little bit better. So, and then for the roughness, we're going to use an anisotropic, which is kind of like brushed aluminum for the roughness. You can kind of see it down there. And we're going to have this be, instead of UV projection up here at the top, we're going to change it to triplanar, and that just projects it from each angle and blends it in, basically. So we are going to press R to scale this, and we are going to scale it in like that, and just get it as close as we can without getting too terribly close. There we go. Okay, so now you can see we've got the anisotropic noise running down that way, which looks good. And now we are going to add a levels, and we are going to change this from base color to the height. First thing we're going to do is just drag the minimum all the way down, which lessens it out a little bit, and then we are going to drag the high on the bottom down until it's just barely there. Just so we get a little bit of extra detail on it. Maybe that's even too much. Just want it to be like, yeah, just a touch. And then we're going to add another levels, which is going to be for the roughness. And so now, basically this bottom channel controls what the roughness is. 0 is completely smooth. It's like super, super shiny. And then 1 is completely like not reflective at all. So we are going to want to find an area that is kind of metallic, but let's see. I also want to change this to have more of a metallic, oh, not that much. Tweak the color a little bit. Okay. So something's looking off about this. I'm going to let me get out of orthographic by pressing F5. So I'm thinking it might be a little bit too light now. That's looking better. The anisotropic's a little much, so I'm going to bring those closer together. The closer together these are, the less noticeable the final result will be. I'm also going to do that for these guys, so that it's just barely there, something like that. Okay, now I'm going to Yeah, roughness won't do anything. Let's see. Okay, that's looking better. Okay, so now that we have that for the most part done, come back. Actually, let's go ahead and add grunge. So I'm going to add another fill layer and name this dirt. We can rename this one to base. And I'm going to give this one a very kind of orangey dark color, kind of like that. And then add a mask to it. And here we are going to add a generator. And I want this generator to be, let's try the normal dirt one. So that's pretty uniform, which isn't quite what I'm looking for. I also want to take the roughness up. Something like that. Just that it looks very dry on the metallic surface. And here I want to go here and let's take the dirt level down, but take the grunge amount up. Oh, not that much. Yeah, probably something like that, just so it's just a little bit of dirt on it. Doesn't have to be over the top crazy. And I also want to add, another fill layer, but let's change this one so that it only does height. And I'm going to add a, let's see. Okay, I'm going to add a mask on this, and then I'm going to add a fill, which is going to be scratches. This grunge scratches rough. And over here for the height, let's take this down a little bit so that you can see what it's doing. So now it's taking scratches and just putting them all over the silencer, which doesn't look that good or very realistic. So we're going to want to make this so that it, first off, let's turn up the tiling so that they're smaller. I don't really want those little dots. Maybe I do, but not very much. We'll, however, turn up the tiling so they're smaller. Okay, and now we want to use a generator and do metal edges. And so right now it just still looks really bad. It's just messing up all the edges. But what we want to do is change this from normal blending to darken. And that should just put scratches. It will put them a little bit on. Here we go. Then if we up the grunge, it'll put them on flat faces. If we up the wear, it should put them on the edges some more. Maybe, actually, let's up the contrast. And then for these scratches, I'm going to take the balance down a little bit, just so there's not nearly as many. Maybe that was too much. I'm going to come over here and change the panorama I'm using to studio. Okay. Yeah, that's looking better. Alright, so now we can start messing with the other one, which is basically going to be the same thing except darker and not nearly as metallic. So to start with the fill layer, we're going to take that down to a, oh, what would you look at that? Didn't get fixed entirely. I want this, oh, maybe not. Yeah, I want it to be black. Okay. I'm just going to fill that in real quick, just so that we don't have any issues. Spin around to the other side, make sure it looks alright. It's looking pretty good. Okay. Okay, back to work. Alright. So I'm going to take the roughness up. Actually, we're going to be probably changing that later. And then right click and add a fill. And let's make this just change the height. And I want this to be the blue noise again. And add a levels for the height. Basically just do the same thing. Bring that all the way left and then bring this one closer like that, so that it just gives it a slight little bump. Okay, now I'm actually going to take the roughness down just a bit so that it's a little bit shiny. There we go. And make sure it looks alright on the front as well. Real quick, I'm just going to go to texture set settings and change it to 4096 just so I can preview it at its full resolution. But editing in 4096 gets pretty laggy most of the time for me, so I try not to do it too often. Alright, so now that it's full resolution, looking pretty good. Scratches on the edge. No, I might, on the light metal, make that dirt just a little bit darker. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You make one change and you have to wait for this loading bar to come all the way up. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I just brought it back to 2048 just so I can edit it. I want to make the dirt more visible than just in light. I want it to be darker. So I'm going to go over here to the dirt mask, maybe up the level. Just want it to be just a little bit. Maybe that's a little too much. Okay, there you go. So now you can see it a little more than just in the light. And so now the next thing we're going to do is add dirt and scratches to the dark metal. So basically the same thing, just go here, add a fill layer, name this one dirt, make it a, you could probably just duplicate the other one over, but I'm just going to do it again real quick. And right click and add a generator, select the dirt, and turn the grunge amount up. What's happening here? So you can see it adding some more dirt than, like, more dirt in the crevices than it does just everywhere else, which is super handy. It's really nice that it does that automatically. And then we are also going to take the roughness up, just that it makes it a little more visible when light reflects off of it. Okay, so now that we have that, let's check on the front, make sure it doesn't look bad. I think I'm actually going to change my panorama back to something like maybe this. Oh, that's super green. I don't like that. Come on. There we go. Okay, that's better. Gives us a nice point of light. Okay. So now I think we just need to do the stamps. So I'm going to go into, okay, there we go. Go into orthographic with F6, and then on top of these two folders I'm going to make a new layer, just a normal layer, not a fill layer, and name this height details. And in this we just want it to change the height. And so what I've done, actually let me see if I need to import it. Yeah, I'm going to need to import it. So to import alphas into your shelf, you just go over here to Import Resources, the bottom left, and then press Add Resources and go to wherever you would have it and select the alpha, and then alpha and import to project. And so now you have a nice alpha that you can use for whatever. And so what I'm going to do is take the height down a little bit, and then you just left click and it's as easy as that. You've got a nice looking stamp. And because this is on top of everything else, it will make it nice and easy to just put it on any of the materials, just like that. I think the dirt on the light metal is a little bit too intense, so I'm going to take that down a little bit. I'm not really liking the way it's looking. There we go. Okay, now it's auto-saving. Alright, so there we go. It's looking pretty good. Go out of that. Just look around. Should probably stamp it on the other side as well. So go back to height details. Make sure you have this orthographic. Make sure it's at least roughly the same size. It's just a little bit away from that, so probably about there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Alright, I think that concludes this video. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed it, drop a like, and if you're new, hit the subscribe button for more upcoming tutorials. This is the final part of the hard surface in Blender, so I will try and find another tutorial to do next. Thank you, and goodbye.